The Holy Gospel according to Matthew, the 6th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus said to the disciples, "Beware of practicing your piety before others in order to be seen by them, for then you have no reward from your Father in heaven. So whenever you give alms, do not sound a trumpet before you as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, so that they may be praised by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. When you give alms, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your alms may be done in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And whenever you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, so that they may be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. But whenever you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And whenever you fast, do not look dismal like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces so as to show others that they are fasting. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that your fasting may be seen not by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
I invite you to be seated. So last night at the pancake supper, I was sitting at a table with Tiffany and Evan, a group of their friends from the neighborhood. And most of them I had met before, but I didn't know them that well. And I'm really not sure why I did this, but I shared that we are dealing with a baby rat that was not a pet in our house. At some level, I knew these city dwellers would not jump to judgment of the cleanliness of our house. And I was right. None of them raised a word about housekeeping. They were all legitimately horrified at the boldness of this rat, which none of them had experienced. But they did not blame or try to tell me what we should have done differently. Instead, they jumped in with their own stories of dealing with mice. They let me know that we are not alone. I'm sure you were not expecting to hear a story like this on Ash Wednesday. But there is a connection. Confessing the truth of what was going on in a community was a good and helpful thing. I've been thinking a lot about confession lately, partly because it's a key focus of Ash Wednesday, but also because a confession that we used recently seemed particularly harsh to me. We're in a time when people are feeling fragile, and the words just seemed like beating up people when they were down. It took me back to a conversation with someone years ago who told me that it was really awful to start worship with confession. It was an eye-opening moment for me because I've always appreciated starting with confession. To me, it feels like an unburdening, and the pronouncing of forgiveness feels like a fresh start. I know there are others that feel this way too, but not everyone. In the church, we use the word confession in two very different ways. In addition to talking about confession of sins, we also talk about confession of faith. Often it's how I introduce the creed. Let us confess our faith using the words of the Apostles' Creed. So confession is not just saying what we did wrong, it's also saying what we believe to be true. It's not always the case, but ideally, that's what happens in criminal justice. People confess what they've done. They confess to the truth of what they've done. I think our confessions of faith and sin are so closely related. We hear it in Psalm 51, words that are attributed to King David. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your steadfast love, in your great compassion, blot out my offenses. In the same breath, King David confesses his sins, says that he has offenses and needs mercy, and confesses his faith, that God is a God of steadfast love and great compassion who has the power to forgive. And King David had some serious sins. He had committed adultery with Bathsheba, and then he devised a scheme to get her husband Uriah killed. The kind of behavior that it's hard to convince anyone is okay, including yourself. But along with those serious sins, King David had some serious faith. He trusted that God's steadfast love and great compassion were bigger than his sins. King David came to God with a troubled and broken heart. He came to God as someone who knows the harm that he has done, as someone who knows the pain that he has caused. He fully confesses his sin in the context of trusting in a God who can renew him and restore him and keep him going. We can admit the truth of how it is with us when we know the truth of who God is. In just a minute, we'll have a time of confessing our sins and our faith together. Some of us may do a fair amount of confessing our sins alone. This prayer that we will pray together is pretty comprehensive, but it doesn't contain the details of our individual confessions. Some of us are struggling mightily with not understanding where God is in the midst of incomprehensible losses. Some of us do not know how we can go on. Some of us would confess what feels like a lack of faith when it looks like cruelty and evil are having their way. Some of us are trying not to hate those who inflict this cruelty, and we would confess that some days hate wins inside of us. Even though we are not saying all of this out loud, it is so good that we are confessing together, confessing both our sins and our faith. The ashes on our forehead remind us that we are all human and all limited, and we depend on each other to hold on to faith for us when we can't do it ourselves. So together, let us confess both our faith and our sins. And you are invited to stay seated, to kneel, or to stand, whichever is most meaningful to you.